Is it possible that on the day of resurrection a believer and a disbeliever would be treated the same, both being terrified, tormented, and shaken by the horror of that day? How could Allah allow His believing servants to suffer the same frightening scenes of the day of resurrection as the disbelievers and oppressors? The day of resurrection is the day that all followers of the heavenly religions await and believe in. We, as Muslims and believers, have mostly been made to understand that the day of resurrection is the most terrifying day for all of creation. Now, I will give you information supported by the Qur'anic text that will completely change your understanding of the coming of the day of resurrection.
Help me, please, somebody help me. I don't want to die.
Fire, chains, sweat, fear and panic. These are the images and atmospheres that each of us has imagined in our minds and awareness regarding that day. We all understand that on that day, all creatures will be humiliated, frightened and shaken, and that no one will be saved from fear and panic. Regarding the coming of the day of resurrection, many narrations, interpretations, explanations, and even hadiths have been mentioned. A significant portion of those hadiths have been classified by scholars of hadith as weak or fabricated and are not relied upon. However, some people, intentionally or unintentionally, rely on these narrations and convey them to ordinary people without mentioning their chains of transmission. Some of what is said about the day of resurrection is merely storytelling or personal speech that has been presented to people as religion. The fear and terrifying atmosphere of the day of resurrection is a reality that believers do not deny. But before I explain one scene of that day to you, I will make it easier for you to understand with this example, which will later clarify the entire topic. Imagine that you are a 12th grade student, and after a few days you have your final exam, and your goal is to enter medical college. Before you begin studying seriously, one of your friends comes and tells you that they heard a rumor that a specific section of one subject will not appear on the exam, so you should ignore it. You follow your friend's words and do not study that section at all. You then go into the exam, and when you see the questions, all of them are from the very section you ignored. Upon seeing the questions, fear, anxiety, distress, and shock overwhelm you. Not only because your dream of entering medical college has been destroyed due to listening to your friend, but also because you will fail the subject. But the same questions for another student who did not listen to rumors and studied the subject well are completely different. That student smiles upon seeing the questions, takes a deep, comfortable breath, and begins answering. Now, let us return to the day of resurrection. With full respect for all opinions, when it comes to the noble Qur'an, no personal opinion has any place. Regarding the day of resurrection, I will only point to 2 verses that answer all the doubts and questions of a believing person. The first verse describes the condition of those who are disbelievers, faithless, and oppressors on the day of resurrection. And the true promise has drawn near. Then, behold, the eyes of those who disbelieved will stare in horror, saying, "Woe to us! We were heedless of this. Rather, we were wrongdoers." In this verse, the Quran describes a scene of the disbelievers and says that those who did not believe in that day, when they see the reality with their own eyes, their eyes will be fixed in terror, and they will say, "Woe to us! This is what we were unaware of and did not believe in." This is exactly like the student who sees the reality when facing the exam questions and becomes paralyzed with fear because the truth has suddenly become clear. Likewise, disbelievers, when they are resurrected on the day of resurrection and brought before the gathering of reckoning, having spent their entire lives denying that day, will be overtaken by fear, dread, and terror when they see the reality with their own eyes. Everything everything the Quran mentions about the horror of that day will be fully realized upon them.
But if a person is a sincere and righteous believer, can they experience the same fear and state as the disbeliever, as we have often heard? The Quran answers clearly and says, "The greatest terror will not grieve them, and the angels will receive them, saying, 'This is your day which you were promised.'" Qur'an, Surah Al-Anbiya, 21:103. This is a Quranic verse that allows no alternative interpretation. It describes the condition of the believers and states that on the day of resurrection, the day described as the Great Terror, believers will not be distressed or saddened by that fear. Rather, the angels of Allah will come to them and say, "This is the day you were promised." Imagine it. An angel comes toward you and says, "Congratulations, this is the day you were promised." At that moment, Allah the Almighty comforts the believers. This is exactly the condition of the student who worked hard and made effort. Therefore, as the Quran states, that fear and panic are not for the believing person, and it would contradict divine justice for Allah to terrify a believing Muslim in the same way as a disbelieving oppressor. On the contrary, according to the verse, with the utmost honor, Allah sends His angels to serve His believing servants and give them glad tidings of reward and everlasting paradise. Thus, the believer, unlike the disbeliever, not only is not frightened, but is filled with happiness, and the angels further comfort them and bring them joy, giving them reassurance. I will not go further into this topic. Only this remains to be said. It is you who decides whether to strive or not. You yourself decide whether on the day of resurrection you will be among those trembling in terror or among those to whom Allah's angels come in groups, bringing glad tidings, and who meet that day with joyful faces, a day they believed in unseen throughout their lives. You still have a choice while you are alive, which group you will belong to. I leave the answer to you.